If, in fact, Dianne Feinstein were to retire, will you nominate an African-American woman to restore the seat that Kamala Harris is no longer in the United States Senate? And do you have a name in mind?
I have multiple names in mind.
Yes or no.
We have multiple names in mind, and the answer is yes.
All right, that pledge, made in the hurried final moments as a producer counted down to the end of the show, led to, of course, Newsom getting accolades from progressives. Amy Allison, founder of She the People, leading California advocacy group committed to boosting women of color in elected office, called Newsom's statement a game changer. His statement was incredible and long overdue. Now, that commitment came 3 months after Newsom appointed California's first Latino senator, Alex Padilla, to Vice President Kamala Harris's seat after she left for the White House. Harris, of course, was the only black female senator at the time, and since there have been no other black women in the Senate. And a lot of Democrats, including black female leaders and party activists, were upset with Newsom over his decision, because in the left wing of the Democratic Party, race and or gender and or sexual preference are often the dominant factors in selecting leaders or even judges. Now, I was critical of President Biden's almost identical pledge during his 2020 presidential campaign before nominating Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. As I said at the time, Brown Jackson is objectively as qualified as anyone in the country for the position with a Democrat in the White House. But by promising a person of a particular race and or gender, I believed it detracted from the appointment. I believe it does a disservice to qualified people. When that person gets appointed, it no longer feels like it was based on merit. It feels like a quota pick. The race to fill Feinstein's seat when her term ends has already begun. Currently, there are 2 Democrats polling strongly, Representatives Katie Porter and Adam Schiff, and 1 Republican, Eric Early. Third Democrat, Representative Barbara Lee, lagging behind all 3 of them in the polls. She's the only black woman currently in the running, so if Feinstein is out and Newsom gets an appointment, it seems he will likely appoint Lee if he wants to save face and keep that pledge that he made. She'd be the obvious pick, and Lee's certainly qualified, by the way. Served in Congress for a quarter century. She's the highest-ranking African-American in Congress, a member of the House Appropriations Committee, former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. She's also polling dead last at 9% among the current candidates. Even among black voters, 45% said they had no opinion of Lee in that same poll. Now, I'll admit, I felt more strongly about this with regard to the Supreme Court, because there, merit and qualifications really should trump everything. I thought Biden did Brown Jackson and the country a disservice with his pledge. But picking a senator is, well, political. And if Governor Newsom wants to try to shore up the African-American vote, I guess that's politics. But this is also the identity politics that has led some moderates to flee the Democratic Party. Joining me now is Ameshia Cross, Democratic political activist and strategist and former White House communications staffer under President Obama. Welcome back to the show. Appreciate it. All right. So what do you think I'm getting wrong here?
The race-conscious process. I think that at the end of the day, as I think you did eloquently state here, there is something to be said about Gavin Newsom having this pick and choosing to say that he is going to, should this choice come up for him, because be mindful that Feinstein has pretty much stuck to her guns of not leaving until her seat is up in 2025. So he may not have to appoint anyone at all, but that he would choose a black woman. I find that very interesting, very hopeful, considering the fact that this nation has only had 2 black female senators in its history, one of them from California in sitting Vice President Kamala Harris, the other from my home state, the great state of Illinois, Kara Mosley Braun. Yeah. I think that when we look at California, one of the most diverse states in America, it only makes sense that that diversity is reflected in the Senate. Many black voters and many black people and black organizations were quite frankly upset with Newsom for appointing Padilla after the vice president ascended to that role, because they felt as though, you know, this was a seat that was held by a black woman. So now you're going outside of that to move in someone else. But I do think that there's something to be said about ensuring that the Senate reflects those who are actually the voters. And we know that this is a massive voting bloc. Black women actually. Let me ask you about that. I mean, they saved the governor when he was facing recall. They organized, they knocked on doors, they ensured that people got out to vote.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.